All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussion, continuing our Halloween Havoc review series. This is WCW Halloween Havoc 1990. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank, man. Let's get into this. We got a lot to cover on
Yeah,
this, and a lot of botches in this one. October 27th, 1990, from Chicago, Illinois, a sellout crowd of 8,000 on hand to see this. You had Jim Ross and Paulie Dangerously commentating, which I love listening to Paulie back then. He was awesome, still is to this day. Shivani was in the background. They
yeah,
didn't
they had.
quite do they didn't quite do the Halloween Havoc decorating yet
Yeah, it
because they
wasn't
didn't.
quite there. Shivani actually felt like he got slighted because he felt like he should have done the commentary with
Yeah,
with
well.
JR, but they went for whatever reason they decided to go
Well,
with
because they
Heyman.
would try, they would,
That
yeah,
was
they would.
Heyman's first time.
Oh yeah,
That's Heyman's first time.
they were trying to get him on camera because going forward, obviously he plays a big role
Yeah,
in the next couple of
they
years
were
in
going.
WCW.
I think they were going with a heel broadcaster with the contrast with JR, even though
Oh yeah,
supposedly Oli said that he didn't want heel broadcasters, but just Shivani said that that's not true, that he never heard that. That's just some rumor. So I don't know. This is
ah,
during the Pizza Hut era. This is when Jim Herd was in
yes,
he was in charge, but I just mentioned his name. Oli. Oli was the booker.
yeah. hmm
Yeah.
So I mean, the again, the main event on paper was pretty good. The execution there just wasn't. Now here's the little twist to this one. It was a 10 match card. But in order to fit it on the VHS tape back then, they cut out four of the matches, and
Because
we'll
they
get
were
into the
cheap.
four matches they cut.
Because Turner whatever home
Yeah,
video, they were just cheap because the 3 hour videos were longer. So they had to
uh-huh.
pay more money for the 3 hour tape. So that we'll just cut a few
And
matches
if, and
here
if
and
you guys
there.
watch this on the network on Peacock, you'll notice it's most Halloween Havocs are within 2.5 to 3 hour range. This one was an hour
It's
and
the
54
Turner
minutes.
because they're going off of the Turner home videos.
Yeah,
Apparently, like the master tapes that have the full pay-per-view as it was originally aired were lost, destroyed, or
I
Turner
mean, I
Broadcasting didn't see any reason to keep them around. They didn't realize the value that they had
I mean
there.
the
So
four
it's
the
kind
four
of a
matches
shame.
they cut weren't exactly all-star matches,
No, I mean, yeah, you got the
but
results or no?
yeah, I got them
All right,
all.
yeah, we might as well mention them. Well,
Yeah, we'll go. Let's get into it right now. The opening match, which was and I've always said this: your best matches are going to be your opening match and your closing match. And this one really, to me, wasn't. It didn't kick off the night like it should. It was Tommy Wildfire Rich, and Ricky Morton, one half of the Rock and Roll Express
yeah.
versus the Midnight Express. Now, Robert Gibson was out with a knee injury that they used the storyline that he got hurt, that he took a beating in the ring, and he'd be out several months. The only thing I didn't like about this is because WCW had the idea of let's break up the Rock and Roll Express going forward when they did that York Foundation with Terry Runnels and Terry Taylor,
Mm.
and they had put Ricky Morton in there. I didn't like that going forward, and they're the only ones to ever break that tag team up. So it didn't make any sense to me. But this
But
was
Jim,
actually
when is it that Cornette leaves? Because Cornette leaves around this time. He quits. I think
yeah,
it's around this time.
it was several months coming. There was going to be a lot of
Yeah,
people exiting here shortly.
yeah. He had a problem with like the booking and stuff. So they told him, well, if you want to leave, leave. And he's like, all right, I quit.
Well, look who was in charge. I mean, you got Ole
Oh,
was you said was doing the booking, and you had Jim Herd running it, which
running a
Jim
Pizza
Herd
Hut.
knows nothing about wrestling.
Um, You know what's interesting about this is that this is why I have no sympathy for Vince when Eric Bischoff did what he did years later, trying to run him out of business and taking all the guys. This is why I have no sympathy for Vince. This same night of Halloween Havoc, WWF at the time runs a house show in Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon, I believe, the same night to try to take some of their steam away with
Why?
Macho Man and Warrior headlining because this is the petty stuff that they were doing
I
back
mean,
then.
at this point, I mean,
They
the
didn't hurt him. It
NWA
was
WCW was nowhere near
No,
to
they.
me in
I mean,
competition with them.
it didn't even hurt him because this does a pretty decent buy considering, and
It did, unfortunately, considering the card, but
yeah,
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 it did do
and
good.
they
I heard.
sold out. I mean, they were in a smaller arena, but yeah. But you think the match though wasn't the
The
same,
ma-
right?
no, I mean the Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton didn't have the same flair they had the year before when they were wrestling. It just the timing was a little off. It just the crowd didn't seem to be in it, mainly because it wasn't the Rock and Roll Express doing this. It was Rich and Morton, and even the commentators have said, why are we having this match? Why is Rich being the partner to Morton? Why what's the deal here? And I mean, the match was it was the longest one on the card too. If you look at it, it was almost 21 minutes. That preceded every match on the card, which is I can't believe that even the main event. And Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton do get the victory, but I don't know. I was a little disappointed in this one.
Yeah, it was all right. I wasn't crazy about the way the ring looked either.
No, but you had it was like
It was
a
red, right?
lavender,
Or
yeah,
lavender. Yeah,
thing, and WCW always had those smaller rings
yeah. I didn't
and
like that
stuff.
ramp either. The elevated ramp that went straight. That
Yeah,
was
and then I think it was after this match that they decided to interview Sting.
oh Lord.
Yeah, this is where it gets totally whacked out. The whole Black Scorpion thing, which we all know later on comes to be Ric Flair. But what's funny is when he grabs the supposed fan or production worker or whatever, goes behind the screen won't go up. So you see him pulling the screen up. Then out of nowhere,
Mm.
some pyro goes off early. And then you see the Black Scorpion running again. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here? Why isn't
You know,
nobody booing this unless they drowned
yeah,
it
they were
out?
trying to do a little more cartoony. They were trying to be a little bit more like WWF at the time with
Yeah,
that stuff, but all right, it was. I mean,
the whole Black Scorpion thing didn't make any
it
sense
could have.
considering
It could have.
Sting and Flair were already feuding.
The thing is, they just had nowhere to go with that. The story that I heard was that uh this guy Oli was trying to come up with some ideas for Jim Herd, and all he wrote down on a piece of paper was Black Scorpion and Sting, and he had no idea what he was gonna do. And then Jim Herd was like, "Oh, this is a great idea. This is what I'm talking about. Now you're starting to get it." But he didn't even have the idea. Like he didn't even know where to go with it. It was a mess. They were
Exactly.
trying to figure out like, oh, who is it gonna be? And it was. I mean, it could have been if they did it right. I mean,
Yeah.
years later, look at Kane. The whole thing that happened with. I mean, kind of different scenario, but you understand what I'm saying? Like the build up of
Exactly. Yeah.
he's on his way, and you
And
know the voice.
this was a couple of months
Yeah,
because they
it lasts
finally
long.
revealed it in Starcade.
He fought the Black Scorpion at Clash of the Champions, but it wasn't really
Hmm.
the Black Scorpion.
No.
Um, you know who the voice of the Black Scorpion was? Trivia. Ole Anderson.
Really?
Yeah, who was
He got
also
his
the voice of
got his
Shockmaster.
voice that got oh Lord.
Yeah,
He got his voice that deep, huh?
yeah. Mm-hmm. Ole.
Huh. I mean that wasn't bad, but the execution of this trying to disappear when you see him trying pulling up the screen because it won't go fast enough, and then the pyro goes off early.
Yeah,
It's just ridiculous. And this isn't the first time they botched something or this stupid with Sting being interviewed. I'll get into the other one later. Oh, no, I'm not Sting
yeah,
with the Steiners. The next three matches on the card is what they cut out of the pay per view. Terry Taylor defeating Wild Bill Irwin, Brad Armstrong beating J.W. Storm, and the Master Blasters defeating the Southern Boys. And that was, the Southern Boys had come out earlier in the night to cost Midnight Express the match. And then later on, they had their match
yeah,
against, this was Kevin Nash's tag team
yeah,
that he was in. And so all three of those matches were cut. There was also later on Junkyard Dog beating Moondog Rex
yeah.
was the fourth match that was cut.
Poor JYD.
Again, nothing. Yeah, I know. Nothing detrimental to the card. Unfortunately for those guys, they just
Yeah,
didn't get
yeah.
they got the pay per view time. They got the arena time, but not on the
Not on the
on.
home video.
Yeah.
When it was live, they actually saw it. People who ordered the
Hmm.
pay-per-view, but that's been lost to time.
Yeah. There's no recovering it.
Yeah.
So the next match that they aired, and they could have really cut this one, was the Renegade Warriors versus the Fabulous Freebirds. Of all the tag teams in WCW, and they were few and far between at this point, you gave this to the Freebirds. I, I thought this was not a slap in the face, but just an insult to their intelligence as far as wrestling goes. Because this
Yeah.
wasn't even a good match,
They were the Renegade Warriors, but
and it
trash.
was a 17-minute match.
Yeah. Oh. There was a
And
fight too in the crowd.
yeah, so I noticed that.
Yeah.
That was like the highlight of this. That's where the crowd actually woke up.
Yeah.
I mean, they did their best. They would cheer. They were trying to cheer. The Freebirds were the heels, but they're still getting cheered. And the Freebirds did get the victory in this, and they had what was his name at ringside? They kept calling him Little Richard, but
Oh yeah. No, I don't know the name, but yeah, they were referring to him as Little Richard.
yeah,
Yeah,
he stuck
yeah.
around with them for a while as their mascot. It was actually at another pay per view going forward that he accidentally cost them the match, and then they turned on him.
I don't know if
But
you noticed. I forgot who Michael Hayes DDT'd somebody, but the guy slipped out at the end. Like
yeah, oh
he
yeah,
slips. He still doesn't. I mean, he still wins the match. But it was funny because I see him slip out.
mm-hmm.
Jesus, there's another botch. There's a few botches on this show, but
Quite the
yeah,
biggest
I was
one.
just waiting for this to be over. To be honest with you,
Yeah, you and me both.
this match.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The next match was actually pretty good, and there was a botch in this one. It was for the I guess you could say the NWA or WCW United States Tag
The
Team
US, yeah,
titles. It was
that was
the
the
Steiner.
NWA belt. It was the NWA
Yeah,
belt. Yeah.
I think this was if I'm not mistaken, this was the last pay per view listed under the NWA
NWA.
before they went to
I'm
WCW
not sure,
fully.
but yeah, it was around.
So this was the Steiner brothers defended the tag titles against the Nasty Boys, and I always wanted to see these two tag teams fight when the Steiners got to WWE. And it would have been nice to see them fight at WrestleMania 9 because they always fought really well, street fights, whatever they did. And
Yeah,
this match, yeah,
is it that the Steiners get there and then the Nasty Boys leave? Like it was very
yeah,
close to each other, right?
yeah, this was
By the
pretty much
time
on the exit for the Nasty Boys because a few months later they're challenging the Hearts at WrestleMania.
and then I'm saying in WWF, once the Steiners get there, had the Nasty Boys left already, or is there an
No,
overlap?
there was
They
an
were still there.
overlap of a couple of months.
All right, but it wasn't like
They weren't
unfortunately.
used; they were just used on house
Yeah,
shows
yeah, yeah,
because they were still kind of few. The last time you see them is one of them is at the Rumble in '93 because the other
yeah.
one was hurt, and then they did house shows where they were still feuding with Money Inc. And then they were gone, I think, right before the summer.
It's unfortunate we could have had that feud in WWF because this was a great
Exactly.
feud and
Oh yeah.
WCW is a great feud. This is a great match too. Like the Nasty Boys were younger. When people kind of remember the Nasty Boys when they got older and they were fat and out of shape, like the end of the Nasty Boys. But if you look at them here, they could work, man. These
Oh
guys were
yes.
big, but they could move and they were wrestling hard. And they were working stiff with the Steiners and it looked real, man. It looked. They were fighting
Yeah.
in the. Remember, they start fighting right away. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
Steiners run to the ring, and then they're fighting outside. It's like a
And
street
then
fight. It's great. It's great
and
stuff.
then what was it? Jerry Sags got busted open,
Yeah,
and Paulie's like he's busted open and he's still fighting. I mean,
it's a great
it was
match. It
great
looked
stuff
good. It
between the
looked
two.
really good.
Yes.
And man,
Yeah.
the Steiners were so athletic too, man.
Back then, definitely.
Man,
I love how Scott Steiner could maneuver that
the
Frankensteiner so
Frankenstein.
well.
Yeah, it was crazy, right?
It was just insane. I mean, I
Yeah,
get over years that man just lost his wrestling ability. Well, mainly
his
the
body
roids.
broke. His body broke down. He got
Yeah,
big. His body broke down. Combination of things.
but the
Did you
Steiners are one of the best, man.
did you notice that when I forgot, I don't know if it's Sags that he goes to break up the pin with the elbow and he misses, and then Rick Rick is pinning I guess knobs.
Knobs,
I
yeah.
could have it. I could have it reversed.
Was it
All I know is
the blonde headed
what's
one
it?
or the black hair one?
I don't remember, man. It's like, but
Jerry Sags is the
yeah,
black hair. Brian Knobs is the other one.
but he goes to break up the pin and he misses, and Rick, I guess, the match wasn't supposed to end there, so he pretends that he got hit. But
Yeah.
meanwhile, this guy he missed the elbow completely.
Oh my God. Here's the other botch in that thing when Gary Michael Capetta yells out, 15 minutes has gone by, 15 minutes. And meanwhile, the match still had another 5 to 8 minutes to go. And the time limit, the time on this match was 15 minutes, 24 seconds.
Yeah, I mean,
This isn't the first time this happened that night.
yeah,
It
stuff.
also happened during the other tag title match and the main event. So the Steiner brothers get the victory on this one, and they're still fighting afterwards. And what's funny is when the Steiners were interviewed,
Yeah, because
or
they
Scott
attacked
Steiner,
them. No, because the
yeah,
thing is, they win the match, and then the Nasty Boys attacked them
they
after they
took
lost the
out
match.
Rick Steiner, and so Scott Steiner was being interviewed, and then all of a sudden on that podium, Scott turns around and he sees like
A
what
pop.
appears to be a popcorn vendor. Like, why would he be on the
Why would he
podium?
be on the podium?
Turns around
All
and you
right,
can
yeah.
clearly see that it's Jerry Sags. I'm like,
Your
oh my
size, yeah.
God, this was so bad. And he beats down Scott Steiner there. I believe they did have one or two more matches, but it wasn't long before the Nasty Boys were
Yeah.
gone at this point. But this was one of the highlight matches.
Yeah, definitely.
The next one I actually like too because I like them as a tag team. Doom defending the WCW tag team titles or the NWA, whatever, against Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. And earlier in the night, Flair and Anderson had stated that this isn't about good guys versus bad guys. It doesn't matter here. This is just going to be a beatdown in the ring.
That's what I liked about WCW. They would do stuff like that. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
WWF was only pretty much did
Good
babyface
versus
heel.
bad.
Yeah, they didn't. This was
Rarely did they do it. Like eventually they would with Savage Warrior, Bulldog, Brett, Rowdy and Brett, stuff
mhm.
like that. But at this point, they didn't. Hogan and
This
Warrior kind of broke them into doing that.
this is when Flair had that issue with Steiner. They had wrestled previously. They had
Mm-hmm.
wrestled like right before this.
I think it was a Clash of Champions.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Scott accused him of sandbagging him. He was because Scott
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to get a main event push, a singles push. Whatever happened. Flair said that he didn't. That's not true. He didn't sandbag him. I don't know, but they were supposed to fight. I think they were supposed to fight actually at Halloween Havoc. Initially, that was the initial plan. Then it changed, and Flair got put into the tag team, and because Arn, who was Arn's partner at the time? Because he got Arn's partner got hurt. I forget who it was off the top of my head.
Oh,
He got injured. Whoever it was that was part
yeah,
of
I
that
don't
group.
remember.
Yeah, so Flair took his place.
Roma? No, I don't think
No, it
Roma
wasn't
was there
Roma. It
yet.
wasn't. It wasn't Roma. I
No,
forget,
Roma
but
was in WWE at the time.
yeah, but that's how this match ended up getting put together the way that it did.
And it was really good too. I mean, they fought each other tooth and nail. I mean, Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, I've always said to me, were underrated as a tag team at WCW, and they weren't together all that long, which was a shame. But I mean, it worked out for Simmons
Hmm.
becoming world champion. But I really liked how those two guys worked together. And I always liked Butch Reed, even in WWE. I thought he got a bad rap there, didn't
Yeah,
get a push. And this was a knockdown, drag out affair, as they would call it. And it actually ended in a double count out. So it kind of saved face for the Horsemen as well as Doom because not one got getting over
right,
on the
right.
other. And I mean, it was an 18-minute bout. It was really good. So I was impressed with this one. And it was weird seeing Flair going for a tag title when and
Yeah,
not being in the main event.
this is the first. I believe this is the first WCW pay per view to that point that Flair was not in the main event.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
this
Yeah,
is the
I
first
remember.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is kind of like the beginning of the end of Flair's WCW run, and
yeah. I was just gonna say, and he was on his
yeah,
way out soon too.
yeah. You can see him getting pushed down.
Yeah, that's a shame. And then even when he went back later on, I mean, Bischoff still did it to him, and I didn't agree with
Mhm.
it. I mean, when you're fighting six, come on. Our next match, I don't care for the man, so I didn't really like the match. It was for the NWA United States title. Lex Luger defending it against Stan Hansen, which I never cared for the guy anyway. I mean, he was just
Yeah,
a moron to me. But I mean, they really fought hard. I mean, what was funny was Luger kind of hit the referee and they didn't disqualify him. And then while the referee's down and Hanson's doing all the stuff, once Hanson delivered, I get he kind of hit him in the side of the head.
mm-hmm.
Looked like a lariat, but it looked like he messed it up.
No, there it's it's a damn clothesline, but apparently his
Yeah,
clothesline was more powerful than everybody else's, so they call it the lariat.
yeah. Then all of a sudden the referee gets up, counts the three, and Stan Hansen becomes the United States champion. I was really shocked that they
Yeah,
did
I was
this.
yeah
I'm like,
over
why are
Lex
you
Luger.
why pushing this? Why push this guy?
I don't know.
Like again, I didn't. Stan Hansen is known more for what he did over in Japan with Vader and his earlier run in WWE from the late '70s, early '80s. He was in there, but I mean, here this was weird that they actually put the
He
title
won
on him,
over. Yeah, he won over on Luger.
and then shortly after, Luger does get the title back from him. Thank God. Our main event was pretty good until we get to the ending, and we're gonna have to talk about that.
The build up was great.
To this, oh yeah, you got for the NWA WCW title, you have Sting versus Sid Vicious. Now Sid is just what a year just about in the business, and he's already in the main event status.
Hmm.
That was pretty impressive, and he's also a member of the Four Horsemen at this point.
Yeah, he replaced Sting basically. They kicked
Did
Sting
kick
out.
Sting out, yeah.
Yeah, and then they
Which
brought
we all, I mean, come
yeah,
on.
you know that was happen. You know what's gonna happen.
So I mean, this was a really good match until we get to a certain part at the end. Now this is where it got really interesting. I had to
I
go
just want
back and watch it three times.
I just want to mention like you can see Sting worked really hard because because this guy was very green. So you can
Yeah.
see Sting was working really hard to do like high flying spots just to bring the excitement to the match because it was a lot of was on him because and Sting hadn't been in the business that many years when you
Oh,
really
3 years.
think about it. So but Sid was super green, you know. He
Oh
didn't have
yeah.
a lot of experience. I like that spot where Sting runs and jumps. He does like I think he jumps
Yeah,
over.
from the ramp and caught him. That was
That
pretty
was cool.
impressive.
That was cool.
That was
But
right around the time where everything got chaotic
yeah.
because now Flair and Anderson are at ringside. Now here's where I'm going to save you guys if anybody watches this following our review here. I'm going to save you having to rewind back at least a couple of times like I had to do. As they were at ringside, they didn't touch Sting. Sting and Sid head down the aisle. Now all of a sudden, Sid returns. Here's a Sting, but if you notice, like okay, Sting had the little ponytail in the back. The person that showed up in the ring did not. And you really couldn't see the face, obviously, because they did good hiding it. He goes for a body slam on Sid. All of a sudden, Sid falls on him. Nick Patrick's counting to three, rings the bell. Sid is supposedly the champion.
And the balloons come down,
Yeah, I love that. All over the
which
place.
doesn't make any sense because he's a heel. So why would the balloons come down?
Exactly. It was
I know Sid was
premature.
over, but still, it didn't
It
make any
wasn't
sense.
that over.
Yeah. They screwed up because they were supposed to get a camera shot while it was happening of uh later on when is it that Sting comes because Sting comes back out of with the rope, right? The
Yeah,
rope
he
tied
comes out
around
with a
him.
rope tied on one of his arms. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what happens. But they were supposed to get the shot of both Stings. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't get they don't show they show a picture later on after the
Yeah.
match, but when it happened, they were supposed to show Sting with the other Sting in the aisle, and you're like, wait a minute,
That's
Sid
the
didn't win
wrong
the time,
one. Yeah.
but they never showed it. So Sting
No.
just comes back in the ring. You don't even know what's going on.
And the match, and the best part is the match, and the other Sting was Barry Windham.
Yeah,
Um, now here's the best part: Sting gets back in the ring. He stinger splashes Sid, and the match continues. And Nick Patrick counts to three.
how about this? Sting hit him with the belt.
And he wasn't
He should have been
disqualified.
DQ'd. Yeah,
That's the second time
yeah,
in that evening that the champion was not disqualified for hitting the referee.
yeah. And then he counts it, and Sting wins. But I'm like, wait, Sid won. This So
It,
I saw an interview with Sid, and Sid said that he was supposed to win the title. He
that
said
night.
that, yeah, he said they didn't tell him like about all the other stuff. Like they didn't tell him Sting was gonna win the title back, and they were gonna vote. He didn't know any of that stuff. So when this guy came out, when Wyndham came out, I guess he figured out, and he was just all right. Well, we'll just go with it, 1, 2, 3, and he didn't know Sting was gonna come back, and then Sting was gonna hit him with the belt and win the title. That happened all on the fly, and
So,
but he's like, oh well, maybe that was a good idea because if you could fool me, then you could fool the fans. But he said he was supposed to win the title that night. They didn't tell him that he was gonna automatically lose it, and he said that he blamed Flair. He said he thinks it was Flair's politics in the back that caused them to say that he wasn't
well,
he
yeah,
wasn't
because
ready. He wasn't ready to be the champion. They pushed him too quickly.
Flair probably wanted the belt back on himself.
So they don't even recognize this as
Mm-mm.
he doesn't get it
That's
to like
no.
what
It's no
99.
wonder. Yeah, it's no wonder Sid left shortly after this too, because him and Flair jumped ship heading to WWE in the early '91.
And Jim Ross defends this. I don't know why. He said this was great. Oh, this was great. Okay, maybe the execution wasn't perfect, but there was a great ending. And then I forgot the other guy's name.
That
There's
was
another
not a
guy.
great ending.
There's another guy that does interviews, and he was saying how he was comparing it to like the double twin referees
Oh
on the
no,
main
come on,
event. Like this is not even close. They
no.
screwed that. This is my thing. This is how I look at it, right? If you're gonna do this, have Sid win the belt, and
Why
then
not?
you build heat. You build heat on Sid, right? And then you have the rematch, and then Sting gets the title
Mhm.
back.
That,
Why?
that would have made sense if they would
Right?
have executed it with Wyndham getting pinned
Yeah,
and Sting swearing that it wasn't him,
yeah,
and Sid walks off as the champion. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
perfect sense and a great
yeah.
storyline going forward.
Why just take it right off him? It's like it doesn't make
And,
any sense. And
and the
then they
best
screwed
part
up.
is after you ring the bell, the match is still like it's still progressing and it's still going, and
And
Impact can
nobody
still count another three.
and nobody watching the pay-per-view knows what's going on because
Yeah, you see
we
a lot of
never
people turning
saw
their heads.
we never saw the two stings. Maybe some people in the crowd saw them on the ramp, but then
Yeah,
after the match they show a picture, a still picture, like, oh yeah, there was a guy pretending to be Sting, but
then you could tell it was Wyndham.
you were, yeah, right, exactly. But you didn't, that didn't happen until after the match was already
Hmm.
over. So they screwed up that whole one day, as far as I'm concerned. I you know, a great build up to it, but in the end, so
Typical screw job,
yeah.
botch, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
I mean, that's why I said I had to go back a couple of times, going, okay, what am I missing here? And then I finally saw it. Now, if they would have showed Wyndham in the crowd with the two stings, then people at home would because if
Would
you
know
watch
we
this
were, yeah.
live, you're going, wait, what the hell just happened
What's
here?
going on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please explain, enlighten us.
yeah,
But
yeah. Overall, I
what,
mean, I thought the pay-per-view was all right. I mean, we got
like
the
you
two
said, great
hour.
build up to the main event. Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, it was 2 hour, but the format they
yeah,
cut was no big deal.
yeah,
You know, it was what it
yeah,
was.
yeah. So, you guys let us know what you think about this Halloween Havoc. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.